7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. We are back here in studio. It is our Wednesday show, and we are talking golf, as we have for the last couple weeks, I guess now. Tony Johnson back with me in studio. And Tony, how are you feeling right now?
In general?
Well, general, I mean, I know that we'll recap last week's results. I know they didn't go the greatest, but, I know that the Arnie Classic in Bay Hill is kind of a time, just from the basic knowledge that I know of golf, a lot of people get up for this event.
Yeah, it's a big one. It really is. I think even since the passing of Arnie, it's almost like it's become a bigger lore. Now they're naming the Rookie of the Year, prize or trophy or whatever you want to call it after him on tour. And I was reading an article earlier today about how his brand, the Arnold Palmer brand, has become even bigger. It's worth even more since then. So yeah, I think it's just an iconic event. They have three people that are hosting the event. The theoretical, host. One of them is Justin Rose and a few others, and it's become really its own event in itself. We used to think of, I think, the Memorial, Jack's event as kind of that signature event of past players, but Arnie's event right up there now, I think, essentially with the quality of field and certainly with the the event being big itself. And then also one other thing to bring up, the 3-year exemption on tour with a win.
They added a year
this week. They added a year, yeah. So it's kind of a nice thing.
Yeah, I was actually seeing that. We were going to talk about that, but it is a good thing to have, especially if you can take down this tournament. It's something like you said. Yeah, Arnold Palmer's kind of his contribution and his love for the game really was exhibited in this tournament a lot. I've actually had the privilege of watching this tournament live. Working for radio in Orlando had its benefits sometimes, even if golf really wasn't a passion of mine. Watching golf and watching the stars, I actually watched it in 2012, and I think Tiger won that year.
Okay.
So we'll talk about Tiger a little bit later, but it was really cool to see a person who's a very casual fan see a guy who I would say I'm a fan of, if I had to pick anybody in golf, and watching them win. That was a pretty cool experience for me. And that course is very nice. I've actually played it one time. I saw the whole course.
I'd say. It's a tough course. I mean, I could understand.
Yeah, well, there's two courses there. The other one, I forget what they call it, but the other one's supposed to be tougher than Bay Hill. So
interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly, considering it's not even played by the professionals.
Wow.
But nevertheless, again, thank you for listening. This is the Vegas Squares podcast. We are sponsored by 12-Ounce Sports Radio, Chai Poker, Vegas Puckline Apparel, and Eric on the Web Productions. So, without further ado, let's kind of recap last week. Token's not here with us because we're actually recording at an unorthodox time that he was not available for. So, don't remember a lot of what he had. I do want to shout out to Token because last week he did have, in the Color Guard Classic, Miguel Angel Jimenez over Jerry Kelly in a matchup bet at minus 115. I did tail that, one of the only things I tailed of Tokens, and it ended up being a successful win. So shout out Token, appreciate that, made me $100. And so how did it go last week in the Honda Classic as far as your wagering?
Yeah, we had a couple of losers both in the future side and in the matchup side. It was fortunately, I should say, one of the last weeks, I think, in maybe a month or month and a half or so, where we had an outright loser for the week. So, really happy to have a nice run. As always, all the good runs do come to an end at some point, and
it has to happen.
It has to happen, and it was just one of those. We didn't make any gross mistakes per se. It was just a few shots, a few small things here and there that didn't come through. On the future side, I will say, my action was definitely subpar. I had a bunch of guys that we had bets on that missed the cut. And anytime, you have that, especially if they miss the cut by more than, 1 or 2 shots, that's probably not the right pick. Guys like Brian Harmon and C.T. Pan, who, Brian Harmon has been very up and down this year. His game is not where it should be, but it was one of those, I'm willing to take a shot there. If he misses the cut, I don't care. C.T. Pan, that's an odd one, because there were 2 matchups associated with that, and he's a relatively consistent player. He only missed 3 cuts last year overall, total in the entire year. So to miss one right there, that's a pretty bad pick. I'm not happy about that with in regards to my own picks there. But other ones, we had one where Gary Woodland had a 20-foot putt on 18 in the second round to make the cut, and he ended up making it. So I lost a matchup there. I would have pushed one, which was hundreds of dollars of swing, unfortunately, on a
how
20-foot
often does
putt.
20-foot putters just
Exactly,
fall in to kick you in the nuts?
Yeah, so it was unfortunate in that sense, but we won. We went 2 and 3 in matchup bets, and then we bricked on the futures. So yeah, not a great week, but I like the handicapping. I think I figured out the guys for the most part I was on did well. I was touch and go on Lucas Glover, and that matchup bet would have come in really, really easily. So it's unfortunate you didn't pull the trigger on that one, but these things happen. Overall, it's one of those weeks. Shrug your shoulders, focus on the next one, move on. Stay positive.
Yeah. Well, for every JB Holmes at 125 to 1, you got to have a week like this.
Got to have them, absolutely.
Yeah. So doing my research, actually, I was looking at the Arnold Palmer. I like to look at the course and a lot of the history of the course and the history of the tournament. And essentially, I found this kind of funny is. Originally, this was in the 60s and 70s, the Citrus Open Invitational, played at a course called Rio Pinar Golf Club, which, ironically, I have also played. There's a lot of courses in Orlando and subsequent areas. So I just find it funny that a lot of these places that, like Rio Pinar, I'm sure it's a different course than it was back in the 60s, but just kind of one of those 6 degrees of separation things I found interesting as well. Have you played golf in Florida? Ever?
I don't think I've actually ever teed it up anywhere, have I? Maybe once in Tampa and St. Pete. We went a couple of times years. Maybe one of the resort courses there, but nothing specific that I can remember, no.
Gotcha, fair enough. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Bay Hill a little bit, and we like to talk about the course and kind of, you're a course guy, and it kind of helps you obviously handicap the players when you know a little bit about the course. Let's talk about the pros and cons for players as far as the course is designed. Where is it? What are the pros and cons? I mean, I guess I'll leave it as an open-ended question to kind of let you decide, or what's the word I'm looking for? Let you describe the course.
Sure. This is one of those courses that, because it was Arnie's sort of a home, and he basically made it his home over the last 20, 25 years of his life, that he tinkered with it quite a bit. And it was originally designed back by a guy named, I believe, of Dick Harris back in the 40s or 50s, and it looks beyond nothing like it did then. Basically, every year there were at least some changes. Maybe the green complexes, tees were moved, things were lengthened, bunkers were adjusted. There was always changes made to the course. So this is one of those weeks where you had to pay very close attention to see what changes were, because almost every year there was something that had been done to it, and this year is again no exception. So we have 2 new tee boxes now on number 4 and number 9, which have essentially just lengthened the course. They haven't really changed any of the angles per se, just kind of backed it up a little bit. They took off some hazards and cleared some brush just to lengthen the course a little bit. And then we have some of the greens have been shaved off in the sense that they've added more fringe and more, I guess, barrier from the green. So the greens have been compacted a little bit, so they're not as large. A few of those, I don't know all the holes exactly, but there have been a few changes there. So in that sense, that's some of the changes there. Now, what the PGA Tour has decided to do this week, and this is very specific and the most important, is the rough will be the longest it's ever been. They're going to let it go to about 3.5 inches in some of the biggest spots around, mostly 3 inches in the rough, which is 3 inches is about as high as it gets for a general tour event, especially an event where there's a lot of other things that that can bring you harm, I would say, on this course. This is not the easiest course these guys play week in and week out. Also, the greens will be running faster than they ever have. 13.5 in the stimp meter, which is about as fast as it gets completely on tour. So not only do we have about average size greens to slightly below average, we have these greens running incredibly quick this week. So this will be one of the toughest tests I think we've seen. Weather should cooperate okay, so that won't be an issue, but the actual size of green and with how fast it goes is about in regards to that correlation, about the toughest that they'll see this year. So, nice thing is you can miss some of these fairways, especially some of the par fives, which are not terribly long. It's only about 7,400 yards, stock par 72. So. Some of the longer hitters will benefit from that because missing some fairways, and if you draw a decent lie, even in the 3-inch rough, should still be able to get there in 2 for a lot of these guys. So I do think the par 5s will, like in most years, will yield some very, very low scores. But besides that, accuracy, hitting into greens, obviously, especially if they're not of large size, and of course, putting, as always, and we saw last year with Rory McIlroy, who put on an absolute clinic, especially in the 4th round with the flat stick. So, yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you talk about how the rough is going to be deep, and then you talk about how the course is going to be a little bit longer. That's kind of a tough, catch-22 for a boomer, a guy who can hit long off the tee, because a lot of those guys who are long off the tee aren't necessarily accurate. So what does that really say for a player who, who's going to come in and compete? That really presents kind of a challenge for a guy like like Rory, who can obviously boom it. Other guys as well. Accuracy is more of a key this week with the length of the course, or with the rough, or is distance off the tee going to be a bigger plus, even if you do happen to miss maybe 5 or 6 fairways?
I hate to give a non-committal answer, but I think it might vary, from hole to hole. I think players
God damn it.
I know. Players are going to have to make a choice, especially in these practice rounds. These could be some very important practice rounds for some of these guys that especially haven't seen the course as much as some others. And we've got guys like Charles Howell, who's making his 20th straight appearance here, that I think you'll have to be more selective off the tee. A standard hole where you're all right to bomb it, and missing is okay out here. With the whole changes that there could be, you might not want to take driver off the tee. It might be more of a hybrid or a fairway wood just to hit a fairway. But I will say, if I had to answer, like a gun to the head kind of thing, if I had to answer what will be more important, I do think driving distance will be more important and more at a premium, especially with the longer par 4s and the par 5s not being terribly long in comparison to tour standards, where if you do draw at least some sort of a decent lie in the rough or something good, you will still be able to get there in 2 because there's going to be a lot of irons coming out of the rough because of how short the par 5s are, comparably speaking. So I do think the longer hitters are still an advantage this week. Maybe not as much as in years past, but still an advantage, yes.
So basically wrapping that all kind of up is, you kind of already nailed it on the head, but what kind of player, what kind of overall player does this course favor?
Well, that's, again, another pretty tough question. I do think a player that, while, as you said, driving accuracy is not necessarily the most important tool, I want a player that has a good plan, that stays aggressive, sometimes in the face of adversity with that plan. So if the right move is to take driver off the tee, then no matter where you are in the tournament or what the situation is, hopefully that driver does still come out of the bag, or vice versa. If the right move for them because of the hazards that are maybe on that hole, and if they miss it to the right, and those hazards are off to the right. If they need to hit a hybrid off the tee, then they shouldn't, be adjusting to that. So I would say, again, I'm looking for a pretty heady player here that has been around as well. This type of tournament specifically, do think experience matters a lot. There have been very, very few first-time winners out here. A lot of European winners recently. I believe 7 of the last 13 years a European winner has happened. But even that being said, a lot of those winners were tour professionals, were PGA Tour professionals. They weren't actually European Tour players. So things like that, like Justin Rose, I know as one here, and a few others. So I think, to me, it's a well-rounded player in general, but I'm erring on the side of more aggression and consistent aggression. I do think that would be probably my take there. And then, of course, in and around the green, I do think that especially this week, because the greens are going to run so fast, and because the rough around the greens is going to be a little higher than normal, I do think an American player, or a player that is, I should say, used to playing on the PGA Tour, where greens are just running, they run faster than they do on the Asian Tours and European Tour, I do think that player will be at a slight advantage versus some of the other ones, guys like Tyrrell Hatton or maybe some of the others. Tyrrell's starting to play a lot more over here though, so I'm not sure he's still in this camp. But
okay, fair enough.
But guys like that are really used to playing out there, I do think will be at a disadvantage because this is going to be a tough test. Holding some of these greens even from just off the green will be tough for some.
That might be a fun thing to watch this weekend, to watch the balls just.
I agree. I'm actually really looking forward to that too. Totally agree. Yeah.
So yeah, one thing I looked at and I thought this was pretty cool. So I'm gonna be putting some money on who, the first person I hear say this before they tee off is now. I don't know if this was happening last year, but I think at least this year the winner of the Arnold Palmer Invitational is going to receive a red cardigan, almost like a green jacket in honor of Arnold Palmer.
I read about that too. Yeah.
That he wears. So the first person that says he's aiming to wear the red cardigan, I'm gonna lay some action on that one.
Okay.
But you're right. The Europeans, especially Rory McIlroy, like you said last year, defending champion this year at minus 18 is what he won at. Going to obviously be looking to repeat. He is the favorite. We'll get talking into that a little bit. But I want to talk about, obviously, we talked about it a little bit earlier, the most famous player on tour, and that is Tiger Woods, who has officially withdrawn from this event, which is surprising considering this is one of the events he loves. It's one of the events that pretty much is right near where he used to live for a long time before, I would say, what was his wife's name? Ellen? No, her.
Elin.
Yeah. I'll call it Elin Gate.
Elin Gate, yes.
I'll never forget when I was living in Orlando and the news broke that Tiger Woods had crashed into a fire hydrant at like 7:30 in the morning, and everybody's like, that seems weird, and everybody's like, "Oh, he was just probably out drinking, and drinking and driving, no big deal." And the story just unraveled and unraveled and unraveled. Oh man, you can't make that shit up.
It is incredible, really. Yeah. It really is when you think about
all the way down to like a waitress at his local Perkins right around the corner. It's just oh man, just from the top, from the strippers and the porn stars all the way down to the chick bringing him, bacon and eggs. That's for another day, though. We'll talk about that. But let's talk about Tiger Woods a little bit. And withdrawing with a neck strain. Obviously, he says it's been bothering him for a while, but he did play. He did not play last week, but he's played the previous 2 weeks. So, initial thoughts and initial level of concern with this withdrawal.
Always concerned with injuries, especially to older players, and how well they'll be able to recover and get back to a level of play that can compete with many of the younger players. I think it's no surprise here that as you get older and as the injuries may mount up, it's a little bit harder to get past them and compete in such a young and competitive group nowadays. So I think the concern should be real. Again, we don't really know exactly what the injury is per se. Not that it really, not that we have to know, but anytime you have some sort of injury that has been lingering, may and now be keeping you out of some weeks, however long it would be, for someone that's in their 40s, I think is definitely a concern. And I, not knowing anything more than that or any of the details, I would put this on the level, on a 1 to 10 level as 6, 7, maybe even 8 or whatever. This is something that is not good for Tiger Woods fans out there, or for people that just want a competitive Woods back in the fray. This is certainly not good for that.
But that's a fair assessment. I mean, I get, like you say, with the level of unknown rises the level of tension or concern. But we're getting into very close quarters with a lot of the bigger tournaments.
That's true.
So the level of concern right now for me, especially since he, in his statement, said he's going to focus all of his attention over the next 5 or 6 days on getting ready for the Players, which is the next tournament after this. And effectively, the fifth major, as they call it. It's I think, the biggest purse on tour. I could be incorrect on that.
It has been before. Yeah, I don't know if it still is, but certainly it has been.
But, obviously, Tiger's not one to be playing for money, but the purse actually adds prestige, which actually adds value to the tournament. And talking about Tiger Woods, having to, select a schedule that keeps him relevant and keeps him competitive, the Players' Championship would be a pretty big one to miss. So the question is like you said, with the level of uncertainty, he's an older player. He's, 43, I think, something like that? Yeah. With the neck strain, we talked about for so long with his knees the amount of torque he puts on a swing. The neck's kind of a new one, it seems. I don't know if this is connected to all the lower back injuries he had, because obviously, the neck bone's connected to the lower back. But, to me, my concern right now is small. If we had to do the 1 to 10 scale, I'd say it's a 3 or a 4, because initial level of concern is there because this is a tournament that Tiger likes to play. He's obviously an 8-time winner. I believe he's the only person who's won this tournament 3 or more times. And he finished 5th last year. So it's not a tournament that he would really like to not be a part of because, one, like you said, he used to be kind of the de facto host of this tournament for a long time. So it's kind of almost like, I liken it to, okay, so I've lived in Vegas for going on 5 years now, and if I was going back to my old stomping grounds and visiting friends, it would almost be like you're going like that. I go back to Florida and see people I know, and you get kind of in that comfortability stage with, you were kind of the alpha dog, and now you're not there. Yeah. So it's kind of a situation where I sense the concern about not playing this tournament. But I feel like I believe Tiger when he says he's gearing up all his energy and his rehabilitation work towards playing next week in the Players.
I mean, I hope you're right. For that sense, I mean,
I think that would create a huge problem if he can't play in that one, and then we have, and we'll get it. I'll let you respond to that, but then we have obviously April 11th as well.
Yeah, exactly, and also the the PGA Championship now being in May. This whole schedule is so condensed now that if you can avoiding injury or avoiding I would say a large stretch
of injury.
Yeah, of subpar play even. And like if you have your bad stretch of play in May through June or whatever, that's a really, 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 really bad time to do that now with the schedule. It's one of those things that, I mean, I think we'll see a lot more guys be taking time off and really trying to push for, playing their strongest golf from that time because as the season gets more condensed, I think you'll see these type of fields get even more competitive. So, while we had a little bit of a one-off with the Honda last year, I don't think that's going to stay at all. I think these fields are going to remain really, really, really strong just because, the schedule is so condensed. So, I mean, we'll see. If it doesn't linger, obviously that's fine. He misses a tournament, that's not a huge deal. But if it does linger, he's going to have to make some big decisions on, what he decides to do, how much it affects his practice schedule, how much he can play, things like that. There's a lot of big events that are pretty much just around the corner. So,
yeah, and you kind of talked about that because obviously odds aren't out for the Players. At least I haven't seen any. You may have seen some offshore, but I would imagine my best guess is that he would probably open up in the 15-1 range. What do you think books are doing to kind of? Are they just sitting on their hands right now at this point to see if he even, or I guess they're just waiting for information, kind of like we are.
I think so. I'm sure they're just sitting and waiting, and they'll be paying very close attention to all of the outlets and close writers that stay pretty close to players, from Golf Channel, Golf Week, and all those guys. That they'll be waiting for a while here. And my guess, if there isn't a lot of information or news by Monday or so, when the odds will break, is that they'll just put him at a relatively low number just to kind of take the edge off.
Away.
Exactly, yeah. My guess is he'll open. He might even open lower than 15 just because they don't want to take, a whole lot of risk here. That if they throw him out there at 25 or 30 and he ends up looking fine in practice round, and he's playing all the practice rounds and like that. That could be.
They're kind of in oh shit mode.
They could be hanging out to dry a little bit. So that would be my guess. But I would say at this point there's probably not a lot of concern or worry because this is not one of those tournaments that they've taken any future action on or anything like that. Because it's relatively normal with the way the odds open. I don't know if they take. I'm sure some of the offshore books do take some future action, but not a ton. I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, and especially not right now. He might not even be. Even if they do have future action on the Players, he may be off the board right now based on his. Like you said, his. They may have a 6 or 7 level of concern, like you do. You're a lot more. Ear to the ground kind of in the PGA than I am. But as a casual fan, I'd say, look, okay, he's going to miss this tournament, but I think as long as he's telling me he's ready, going to try to be ready for the Players, I don't have any choice but to believe him. Masters odds. He's 12-1 on William Hill right now. Like I said, that's in about a month, a little bit over a month. The neck injury, can it be a lingering concern if he's not playing the Players, or obviously he's not playing this, but if it becomes a situation where he's doubtful or almost out for the Players, what are we looking at here with 12-1 or just 12-1 in general on the Masters? Are we looking at coming off the board? Are we looking at going higher? This is a spot where, the Masters, again, a month away. There are going to be a few tournaments in between, but Masters odds are out now.
That's for sure. You might see a little bit of a retraction. He might back up a little bit into the 14-15 range, but I wouldn't expect.
He gets so much of the handle, so a lot of people. A lot of casual people want him to win, so they don't want to be the guy not on Tiger when he does win.
Sure, no, and that's true. But I would say, if this becomes a lingering injury, he doesn't play in the Players, and there's question marks going forward, he might back up a little bit. But I still think that overall, since we do have 2 or 3 weeks there, they're going to wait. They're going to take the wait and see approach for the most part, and maybe the only way it backs up is if they do get some heavier action on other players, and they have to force and move the odds a little bit. But I'm not quite sure how much handle comes in on Masters futures, before the Masters
right
week.
now,
My guess is not very much, but
you wouldn't be putting any Masters futures in right now.
No. I try to wait. There's been a couple of exceptions, maybe over the last 4 or 5 years. I've done it maybe twice, where I've bet on a major 6 months in advance, and it's because I think that there's a player that I think is starting to really drive forward, and a player that can really, really do some damage. I had one on Tommy Fleetwood 2 years ago when he was playing in his home course, that course that he grew up right behind. He would jump the fence to play, and this was before Tommy Fleetwood was really kind of in the forefront.
That was a British Open, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a British. So I picked him up at like 45 or 50, and ended up going off at 30. So it's not like it was nice, but it wasn't like it was
$20.
Yeah. It wasn't anything spectacular.
I've heard that saying on the street.
Yeah, but that was just a one-off almost. I think I did it one other time with someone to play. I don't even remember. So
fair enough. Yeah, no, I was just curious because you're right. A lot can happen, and obviously, if you're if odds come off the board, you're obviously going to be refunded. But like you said, which way do the books go right now? Because Masters odds are out, and Tiger Woods is probably one of the most action handle than any other player, I would say.
No doubt, yeah. And nobody's a distinct favorite, right? I think it's all relatively, the favorites around 10, I think.
I think 9-1 was...
Maybe DJ's come up a little bit since he's been...
Yeah, actually, no. DJ is 11-1.
11, okay.
11-1 to win the Masters. He's the favorite. Tiger's actually, as we say this, I wrote 12-1. That was this morning. He is now 13-1 with Rory and Rose.
Sure.
So there's really no clear favorite. DJ is probably the best player, but he hasn't necessarily been successful at Augusta.
No, his record is fine. It's nothing better than fine. Exactly. Yeah.
Wasn't that year he fell? He was like 5-1.
Yes,
to win.
that's he was coming in hot.
Yeah, he was like an uber. He was like an uber favorite.
Yes, I had matchups against him that year. I was playing the other side, and so I was a little unfortunate they didn't play. But yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. It would have been better if he could have played one hole and withdrew, right? Because then do you get action on that?
You do. They just have to tee off.
That would have been juicy.
I was hoping. Believe me, I was.
I can imagine. Yeah, slip in the shower, my ass. All right. So,
nobody believes that, do they?
He fell off the glass table doing a bump.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get.
More likely than the shower.
I believe that. Yes. Let's get into the Arnold Palmer, and again, my lines basically are William Hill. So if you have anything else, obviously you can state the difference of opinion, or not opinion, but a difference of line in those said books. But right now, let's talk about the favorites. The 6 here we're going to go over that I see basically are the top 6 that are not named field. We've got Rory plus 650, Rose 10-1, Koepka 10-1, Fowler and Day are 12-1, and DeChambeau is 15-1. Updated odds. Now, basically, Fowler has gone to 11, and DeChambeau has gone to 14 to 1, at least according to William Hill right now as we speak. Let's start with Rory, defending champion. You said he put on a clinic. Difference in course going to be a little bit here this year, going to have any effect on him. And obviously, we talked about betting the favorite. It's not our favorite thing to do, no pun intended. But how do you feel about Rory at 6.5 to 1?
I don't feel good about it. This was one of the weirdest wins that Rory ever had because he won the field. He blitzed the field in regards to putting, and his ball striking was actually middle of the pack that week. I mean, as hard as to believe as that is, he was, I think, 52nd in overall. Tee to green, strokes gained, or something like that. I mean, it was pretty crazy. He made pretty much everything in the last round and a half. Back nine on Saturday, and then Sunday was nuts. So, one of those things that anybody that gets really, really, really hot with a putter, they can just win. You make everything from inside 20 feet.
Putt for dough.
Yeah, it's going to go pretty well for you. So, it was a really odd thing because we've seen, most of the time that Rory has won majors and or just, won on tour. It's been a combination of virtually everything, but especially big, deep, great ball striking, huge drives, hitting the fairway, things like that. So, I think that was a bit of a one-off last year. Also, he was really, really motivated to get a win. He was really motivated to start playing well again. He had had that rough 6 to 7 months where it was he had just gotten married and there was all kinds of things going on. But just built this new house in Florida, and I think there was a lot of transition. And he was really, really motivated to get back towards the top
and pay the mortgage.
Yeah, and he had an excellent second half of that season, and now we know he's had 5 straight top 5s around the world. So I mean, he's playing extremely well right now. All that being said, we have again a pretty strong field. Yes, it's not the epitome, the top of the top. Having the players next week, I think, probably hurts that a little bit. But I mean, this is a really, really strong field, and not just in the sense of the quality of players, but how well these players are playing worldwide right now is remarkable. So I mean, Ricky Fowler has been exceptional. The last month or two. Justin Rose has been one of the top players in the game the last. I mean, he's the number one player in the world. So I mean, there's no question there.
Brooks Koepka finished in a playoff last week. Finished second.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we have Mark Leishman with 5 out of his last 7 events have been a top 10. Tommy Fleetwood has really brought it around now after having a rough second half last year. So, yeah.
We're not at Fleetwood yet. We'll get there.
No, I know. I'm just telling you the overall depth of the quality of players and how well they're playing. I mean, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago with the top players. So many of these top players are playing so well right now that I think it gets difficult to be taking really strong out there favorites. It's not as bad as 5 to 1 that Justin Thomas was last week, but I do think that 7 to 1 is, or 6.5, I guess, on Will Hill is a little too short.
Yeah, it almost seems like you just, based on principle, not you specifically, but a lot of golf bettors, you don't take the favorite just on principle, just because there's not a value there.
Extremely rarely, yes. Sometimes, but it's rare.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple of those guys. Koepka last week, T2 after the playoff, or not T2, but he finished second after the playoff. Justin Rose, effectively, said the host. Are his focus is going to be on playing good golf? Are they going to be playing a good host? Fowler, like you said, is playing great golf. Has a win this year. DeChambeau's kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster, but mostly solid. A name I don't hear a lot about this year so far, and don't know the reason, is Jason Day. I don't really think he's played a lot this year.
Correct. Exactly. He just had another child not too long ago. I think it was 6 or 7 months ago.
Fucking kids, man.
Yeah. So they'll get you down, and I think he's pretty much said that via Twitter or whatever, that he hasn't had a lot of time. Yeah, no, it is great. He's one of those guys. He's an easy guy to really to like. So Jason has, like Brooks Koepka has, he's taken a bit of a step back early on in the season, and he's playing about half of the events that he would normally play. So that's exactly why we haven't seen Jason.
Does he live stateside, or is he still in Australia?
No? He does. Okay. He lives in his wife is from the Cleveland area, and they have maintained a house right in that area, one of the suburbs of Cleveland.
Purpose?
I don't know. Yeah, on purpose. Yeah, exactly. So he does have this large tricked out RV that he does usually try to take, especially when he's going to be playing 3 out of 4 straight weeks. So he'll be able to take the whole family with him and stay in the RV. But yes, I don't know if he might have a house somewhere else too. But I know his main center place is in the Cleveland area. Funny enough. So
interesting. Maybe Shaker Heights. That's the only place I know that's a suburb of Cleveland.
Okay, yeah, fair. I don't know exactly where it is, but yeah, he's that's where he met his wife. So I think they've just stayed there. So yes.
Talk about him, Day and DeChambeau, and like you said, Day's. You have the rust factor. I don't like that term, but you have the factor of taking time off. DeChambeau, another one in that. bottom part of the first tier, are guys like this interesting bets, strong bets? Is this an area? Again, you're going to make your final picks later, but is this an area where if guys looking, does the course favor guys like this, especially, Jason Day, who hasn't really played a lot of golf? Or do you stay away? I
would say it depends on maybe some of the record here too. Clearly you look very strongly at how they've played in years past. And it's a case by case basis, like most other things. I hate to give a kind of a stock answer, but yeah, I mean with Jason Day,
make a great politician.
Yeah, with Jason Day specifically, he has a win, but he has done almost nothing else here. So in his 5 appearances, he has that one win, but he's also missed the cut twice.
That's hard to judge, then, really.
It is. But
you take more stock in the missing the cuts because that's generally the consistency to the mean versus the one day he put it all, the one weekend he put it all together.
Exactly, and I want to go back and look and see, okay, how was he playing that year? What he had been doing before he had that win? Maybe he was playing lights out, at that point. So he was. If you're rolling, it doesn't really matter sometimes where you play. You're probably going to play pretty well.
It's crazy about golf. You're looking at more of the failures than more of the success. Or you're looking at them both, but. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, like look at Tiger has 14 majors to the how many number of majors he's played. Sure. While it's a high success rate in golf, in a lot of other fields, that's a very low success rate. So I mean, like same with baseball. Look, if you fail 7 out of 10 times, right, you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
You're really looking at. I could be putting words in your mouth, and I don't want to do that. But you're really looking at almost why they did what they did in a lot of their failures.
Yes, exactly. How. And I like to look at sometimes the numbers for that specific week, and if they were consistent numbers when they played, the year previous or the year after. Are they really missing a lot of fairways here? Are there a lot of holes that don't fit, their eye? Is it because there's a lot of, right to left dog legs, and they just, aren't able to cut the ball very well, off the tee and things like that. So yeah, there's some really long specifics. I don't want to get into too many specifics and really get it off the rails and kind of boring here. But I think there are certainly reasons why. I did not find one for Jason Day. I'll admit that I didn't find one per se. But
okay.
The fact that he only has one top, I think 45 or top 50, and that was win here really does give me pause for concern. And then we add to the fact that, as you said, he hasn't been playing as much this year, and that's. It can't ever be an advantage to not having played your normal schedule, not having played your normal amount.
Yeah, that's in any profession, just not having the consistency and just kind of going. You don't want to say going out there cold because I'm sure he's playing golf.
No question.
But playing PGA level golf is a little different.
Totally different than at your home club, doing what you do. Yeah.
Than at the Shaker Heights Golf
Shaker Heights Country Club, yes. But Jason's a guy. I always have my list of avoids, and we'll get into everything specific before that. But he's a guy that could very well fall on my list of avoids.
Well, let's take the first pack here. Like again, I look at it as Rory all the way down to DeChambeau, and we'll get into the middle of the pack, starting with Matsuyama here in just a second. In that first 6 guys, Rory, Rose, Koepka, Fowler, Day, and DeChambeau, who are your likes, your dislikes, your bets, your suggestions, and your avoids?
Yes, this is a great question.
Multi-part.
It is multi-part. So Day is on my list of strong avoid.
Okay.
For the reasons we've just talked about. So I am looking to find some matchups for against him.
Maybe you can get some plus money too.
Absolutely. So that's for sure what we're looking for there. Guys that I'm in the avoid camp, but it's not like I'm strong against or I don't want to do anything against them. I just am not interested in what they are.
Don't pick on me if I pick them.
Yeah, is Justin Rose. Again, I follow his Twitter as well too, and he's talked about a lot of things that he's doing this week. He's co-hosting with former Golf Channel anchor Kelly Tillman, who you may remember, and the mayor of the county, one of the county, whatever the
Buddy
county
Dyer,
is.
probably.
Sure. So the mayor as well, and
I don't know who the mayor is now, but Buddy Dyer was the mayor for years in Orlando. Yeah,
got it. So the 3 of them are they're hosting dinners and events and stuff for kids and charity and things along those lines. So I'm a little concerned about that. Not again, can Justin Rose still win and play well? He's the number 1 player in the world.
Sure, absolutely, yes.
But that doesn't mean that. But now
the futures market's probably not great for him.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's for sure. I don't want him at 10 or wherever the case is, or 9 or 9.5. But I'm just going to avoid the matchup bets with Justin Rose too, because he's obviously going to be matched up with guys like Rory and Koepka, and I'm just not sure really. So So just going to kind of avoid it, put it in a backseat there. Rory McIlroy being the favorite. We're going to be looking to, if we can, with one of the guys that I like, maybe get some big plus money on a matchup if it's available. So a lot of times it's not going to be available, and that's fine. But Rory,
a lot of these guys are even with each other.
For the most part.
You're not getting Rory versus who gives a fuck.
Correct.
Jenkins.
That's right. That's right. So for sure there. And the one guy that I'm going to be on here, and it's amazing because I've been against him now the last 2 out of 3 weeks that he's played, is Bryson DeChambeau. As funny as it is, and the main reason,
it's the hat, man.
The main reason for it, and it's not really all that golf related, is that he has a relatively known. I don't know if the word love affair is the right one, with Arnold Palmer. He rode him a lot when he was a kid. They were like almost pen pals per se.
Huh.
And so,
did not know that.
Yeah, he was a huge fan of just him and the aura of Arnie, like many people are. And he went and visited him a couple of different times. Arnie wrote back and let him play at Bay Hill with him in his regular group on like a Wednesday or Thursday when he had summer vacation.
That's cool.
Things like that. Yeah, it's a really kind of a cool story. And so Bryson is always...
That's the guy who wants the red cardigan right there.
Definitely wants the red cardigan. And he shared some of those letters that they wrote back and forth before last year's tournament. So I do know about that. I knew about that beforehand, but I didn't realize it was as deep as it is.
Arnie had a pen pal. Oh.
And he loves this course too. So this is the type of course where things are really, really difficult in and around the green. It's a thinking type of spot, especially hitting into some of these greens, and that's what Bryson really does best. I like the fact that he's taken some time off since his really poor result in Mexico. And I do think that while I'm not the biggest fan of his overall in general, I think that he will rise to the occasion here. And he's a guy that I like a lot. I have some guys written for the future bets. And some of the bets, some of the numbers I've already put in, some of the guys I've already put in for a wager. He's the one that it's almost like the last one in kind of thing, in the bracket type of stuff. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. The best I've seen is 16-1, and
William Hill's currently 14.
I just don't know if that's enough. I got to do a little bit more thought and research on it.
Well, maybe he's more value in the matchups at this point this week.
Absolutely, 100%. Could not agree more with that. I do think he's a matchup.
He might
value.
actually be one who's matched up with Jason Day.
And he happens to be.
Does he? Okay.
He does, yeah. So that was exactly where I was going to go as well. So,
and we'll chat about the matchups.
We'll chat about that. Exactly. I wasn't going to go there. But, yeah, he's the guy I like out of those 6. Ricky Fowler's a guy that if you see something good that's nice, I like, he's, again, another local
his
player.
Wife.
That's been good.
You said if you see something good that's nice. I said his wife.
Yeah, well, probably. So, yes, that's it. But I'm not seeking out anything specifically, but certainly don't want to really be betting against him with his pedigree at this event and how well he's playing.
Again, he might be a Fowler Day matchup as well. So, all right, let's move to what I like to call the middle of the pack, even though they are probably lower tier 1B or 2A. I'm not going to get into semantics here, but I liken it from about, at least on William Hill here, the Matsuyama range all the way down to the Bubba/Lucas Glover range. Ian Poulter in that mix as well. Actually, he looks like he might have been... Oh, no, he actually moved up a lot from this morning. So let me just break it down here what I have. Matsuyama and Leishman and Poulter all at 25-1. Fleetwood, Molinari, and Reed all at 30-1. Bubba, 35. Watson... Excuse me, Bubba is 40, Mickelson is 35, Lucas Glover and Charles Howell 45-1, Billy Horschel 50-1. That's kind of the area I'm looking in, and then obviously Token's boy Louis Oosthuizen is 50-1 as well. I'll throw him in there just for a shout out to Token. But that middle of the pack, not quite the long shots, which we'll get into a little bit, but that middle of the pack, what do you see in there? You can start with the top and work your way to the bottom, however you really want to go with this. But what are you seeing in terms of value, in terms of who you're looking at, your avoids, your plays? You run with it, kind of.
Yeah, I do see some value with a couple of guys here, and so I'll start with Hideki Matsuyama, who I've liked now for the last 3 or 4 weeks or so. Haven't always bet on him, but have at times, and I think this is another good spot where he's coming in as not one of the main favorites, as not a guy that's been wholly talked about per se, but his record here certainly speaks for itself. So he's 3 for 3 here in all 3 times he's played, made the cut, and he's averaging 18th place overall if you take that. So a really strong record. I think that what probably speaks to more than anything else is his accuracy hitting into greens. and being able to navigate through some very, very difficult stretches and difficult holes. And he's also really, really good on par fives. Not exactly the longest hitter, but his accuracy with long irons, and especially with some of the woods and hybrids, is remarkable. So my guess is that's where it comes down to. And he's playing great right now. 4 straight top 20s overall on the PGA Tour in a row here, and he's really kind of come past this wrist injury. I think he's pretty much back to his pretty much A game, I would guess. I know his short game numbers are not up to par, no pun intended, what they should be, but
took it right out of my mouth.
Yeah, but he's playing really well, and I think you can get a number at around 25. I don't know if you had mentioned
Matsuyama, yeah, he's at 25 to
25,
1
yeah, exactly.
Currently, yes.
What I have too. So I think 25 brings some good value there, because he's a guy that if he puts it all together and plays really well, he can run away from a field. He's done it before, no matter how good the field is. So I really like Hideki here at 25, and then guy who had brought up before, Tommy Fleetwood, also I think has some strong value here. If you shop a little bit, there are some 30 numbers out there.
I got 30 here on Willie Hill.
Beautiful. All right. So
as of this recording.
So yeah, 30 for Fleetwood, I think is again one of those same type of reasoning for Matsuyama. When he's on his game, he can run away with the field.
Tough to beat, yeah.
Interesting enough, Fleetwood here has played here twice, and his average. So if you take his 8 total rounds, having made the cut both times, 6 out of those 8 rounds, he's averaging about a 68. That's 4 under par for 6 rounds, and he's had 2 blow-up rounds. He's had a 76 and a 78. So. And he had each of those in each year. So it's kind of funny that he's had both in the top 25s, but he's had a 76 and a 78. Mm-hmm. And so I think Fleetwood is really, really close, and it seems like a course and an event that he seems to really, really like. Obviously, averaging 4 under for 6 out of 8 rounds is fantastic. So it's kind of one of those odd things. You look at his results, you got to kind of get a little bit deeper into it, and I really think that Fleetwood is a really good option here.
Also 30 to 1.
30 to 1. So those are the 2 guys that I'm likening a lot. And then there was one player I know I was on the anti-train. Yes, Francesco Molinari. Another kind of non-golf.
Another token guy.
Exactly related golf reason is that he just signed a new equipment deal with Callaway this last week. So he will not only be putting the new clubs in the bag, which I care about, but I care way more about the ball. So he goes from a Pro V1 to the Callaway ball, and golf ball changes are enormous. Those are the biggest ones that guys can make, just because the ball has not only just feel off the club face or whatever, but in and around the green, you're used to a ball reacting a certain way, you're used to it coming off of a club a certain way, and if you don't have that feel, if you're not sure, if that confidence isn't there, it's really, really, really difficult. And it helps, speaking a little bit from experience, not that I ever played great competitive golf, but knowing going from one ball to the next is very, very difficult. So I would be on the fade train for Molinari for probably at least a couple of weeks. He's going to play next week too, but I would say these next 2 weeks for sure at least. Molinari, I don't want to be on.
Let me ask you a question, to break away from this for a second. We got a little bit of time. So why is golf a sport where the ball is not consistent with all the players? Clubs, okay, that's fine, because basketball players wear different kinds of shoes. The football players obviously have different equipment as well. But the ball seems to be kind of something that I would not expect, but I would almost assume that something that should remain consistent. Everybody should kind of play the same ball. Yeah.
They're similar. All the golf balls, all the tour level golf balls are similar.
Okay.
So.
You're not getting a huge advantage or disadvantage by playing any one golf ball.
No, and you can also play whatever it's your choice to play whatever ball you want.
I'm sure I understand that, but I've heard a lot of people say that golf balls matter. The type of golf ball you play matters. It just seems to me as a competitive sport where you want to have an equal playing field as far as the constant variables that you can control. Sure. Having a golf ball, and like I said, a lot of golf pros, a lot of golf people that I know. Not even just, or including yourself, have said the golf balls matter. So that's just one thing that I have always, for about a decade, just kind of found very strange.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for whether whether they should be playing with all the same ball. I mean, it would make things interesting. I don't know. Besides just equipment manufacturers putting their own take and own spin, on a ball.
No pun intended.
Yeah, there you go. I don't really think that there's much more to it than that. And,
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, they're all relatively similar, although with the way they're constructed, and sometimes the amount. There are some that have different types of cores, and there's different chemicals and such that are put together to create the core. It's no longer any more wound golf balls like back in the day, but pretty consistent and similar, but different balls will do different things. I think it's relatively apparent that if you go from like what Tiger's done and a few other guys, DeChambeau, they've gone to this Bridgestone golf ball. Well, they've seen an uptick in distance, especially with woods, both driver and woods. It's the way that ball spins or the lack thereof of spin, especially side spin, that players are able to get a little bit more distance, relatively consistently. It may depend on the guy, but again, happens. But then you get the other effect of in and around the green. So because the ball isn't going to spin as much, you're not maybe able to control it, or you don't have that feel to be able to control the ball as much, in there. So it's a give and take with a lot of things. I think with most players, me included, I'm looking for something more of a well-rounded sort of piece. And I've only played 2 or 3 different types for the most part, and only one in the last 7 or 8 years, and that's just been the thing for me. So
I do hear the Pro V1s are the creme de la creme so far.
Yeah, I've found personally the TaylorMade TP is a better fit for me, and I like it a little bit more. The Pro V1 is a fantastic ball, but for me, the TaylorMade ball plays better for my strengths, and I'm more comfortable with it, for me. So it varies, and we'll see the TaylorMade ball has really started to come in vogue as well. It was probably played by about 10% of the tour, and now it's about 20 plus. So it's just all on personal preference, and
we know you all came here to listen to us talk about balls.
Yeah, really, but it's important with betting honor against Francesco Molinari.
That's a fair assessment. Yeah. I have no issue with that. Because you say you're always looking for that competitive edge, and sometimes you're right. Changing clubs, changing balls, changing the way you have to adjust your game to that ball or club matters.
It does,
especially in a sport of precision.
Right, and it's not like Francesco's just picked up this ball for the first time and is like, okay, we're going to play with it this week. No, of course, I know he's the last few weeks in his practice. They've been trying to sign this deal for a while, so I'm sure he's played with it. I'm not saying it's brand new, but in competition, it's brand new.
I wish I could get a lot of money to play with my balls.
No.
Sorry, I had to say that. All right, so let's move into the longer shots. Just threw myself off. Let's move into the longer shots. A few I've been looking at, just, again, William Hill here. J.B. Holmes, just because I just now have a soft spot for him because of you. That day sweating in the sports book was a fun day. So
it was.
A lot of pundits have liked J.B. Holmes at 75-1. A lot of pundits have liked this guy Luke List at 75-1. They're saying that the course really fits his game and his style, and he's supposed to be ready to take the next step, even though he hasn't won yet. I threw Schwartzel in at 75-1, a little nodded token. Keith Mitchell has moved to 100-1 on William Hill, last week's Honda Classic winner. So obviously the guy playing well last week always has kind of a presence in the next week's podcast. Two-time Arnold Palmer winner Matt Every is 100-1 as well. That's kind of a name to look at. And Tony, you like this guy, 100-1, Cam Champ. Actually, he's moved to 75-1 as we speak.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you can get him at 100, that is...
he was 100 when I wrote this down, so...
Wow, nice.
I should have texted you, I guess.
No.
You're known for leaving money on the table, especially last night, so...
Nice. That was good. Yes. No, I have done it before. It's one of those things I try to get all my research and everything kind of focused in before I look. It's one of those catch-22s. Do I want to look right away and really kind of find something? And Champ would have probably come up at 101. I would have been very, very intrigued very quickly. But then doing the research and thinking about it or whatever, this is probably not a great fit for Cameron Champ. And this is his first time here as well. He's still going to these courses for the first time, and you get concerned with really, really good young players. I'm not saying nothing against them, but when they're going to places for the first time, we saw this a lot with John Rahm, who, while he went from 300 in the world to in the top 10 very quickly, he was doing that playing good, consistent golf, but not really winning and not having a lot of top fives in these events, just because playing on these new courses, there's a lot of small nuances, and he's making some, mistakes here and there that probably a player that has played, at a spot before won't make. So it's just one of those things that I keep close eye on, but Cameron Champ certainly going forward is going to be a fun guy to watch as
he plays the courses the second time.
Yeah, I would say more so than that, or we get a really good fit. Maybe there's a really good fit in a spot where you can get the TPC San Antonio comes to mind, where you can kind of bomb it, but the wind is so crazy and the course is so long and difficult that, in a spot like that, if he's on, and he's a good wind player too, really good wind player, because he doesn't hit the ball that high, but he hits it so far.
Fair.
That would be a spot too. So yeah, that's all. That's the point there. But long shots for me. I'll start with Luke List. I think is a great one.
Okay.
He's only played here twice, made the cut both times, but not only that, he's finished 7th and 17th in those two years, both last year and the year before. So he's obviously played well here before, and yeah, the fit I think is really really good for him. I think that's just one of those deals where he plays well generally in Florida and on Bermuda greens as well. He's a Bermuda green guy, which will lead me to my next player.
That's the color I look good in my shirt. So.
The next guy I like is
kind of a man.
Yeah, I was going to say
more of a neon, but
if you're gonna go green, you might as well go all the way. What I got here, so
you got a loud green.
If you want to, as my mom would say, I can at least see you in a crowd. So yes. Daniel Berger, 60-1, another native Floridian who thrives on Bermuda greens, especially the Tiff Eagle type of grass, which they are playing again this week as they played last week. Daniel Berger finally coming around. Had a really, really rough second half last year. And he was going through some swing changes as well, and I don't know if there was any personal stuff going on, but his record was really subpar, and it was touch and go for a while whether he would even get into the FedEx Cup. But he ended up making a few cuts late, and he did, and now he's finally coming around. He had I think a tie for third a couple of weeks ago in Puerto Rico, and he played pretty well last week, somewhere in the 30 range, and this is a good spot for him here too. So
Berger.
I like Daniel Berger at 60-1. I think there's tremendous value there in the future market, much more so than actually the matchup market potentially. Depending on the player that they get matched up against, but I think 60 is really, really good there. And my third one that I'll mention is Henrik Stenson. He's at 50 here. This is one of those pure decisions where if you either are looking at how he's playing recently or how he has played and his record on this course. Because recently he is a complete train wreck. He's barely making cuts. He's struggling with accuracy with that great 3-wood that he's well known for, because he doesn't really hit driver. He hits that 3-wood so damn far that he just basically hits 3-wood off every tee. And he's struggling with accuracy. He's hitting only at about 42% clip this year, starting the September's tour season, and around the world. He's not been accurate anywhere. So his numbers have faltered, obviously, and he's only made about half the cuts that he's played in these 9 events this year. So terrible in that sense. However, at this course and at this event, 9 out of 10 cuts made, and
not so fast.
And of those 9 cuts made, 5 have been good for top 10s. He was in the mix last year. Also not playing great coming into the event last year as well. So and Stenson, I think if he had been playing well, he had a good Mexico finish, things like that, I think he'd be more like 30-1 instead of 50. So I am going to ride the train, and it depends on sometimes the situation. But Henrik is such a long-time veteran, and I feel like a guy like that will right the ship much more often than a guy, who I don't have as much confidence in, who has not won majors, who has not been there before. And so I'm going to ride the course history train here, and I'm going to be on Henrik Stenson. I would be shocked if he misses the cut and/or doesn't have at least a chance to win with maybe he'll take a great round on Sunday, but I think he'll give himself a chance here. And I mean, his numbers are so good at this course. So I'm going with Henrik Stenson. I like him both at 50-1, and I think there are some positive matchups for him along the way as well.
Actually, I was just going to segue right into that. He seems like a guy you would be interested in watching the matchup spots here. So, without further ado, we've got about 6 minutes left. Sure. Let's talk about matchups that players that you'll be favoring, players that you'll be looking to avoid or bet against if they line up with matchups. So, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'll go.
I can't read your script from here, so I will let you just kind of see where you're going.
I'll just go. So the rest of my avoid list ends with Phil Mickelson. I know he's been on my avoid list a little bit recently too, and this one just continues on here. Yes, he has won, and it was way back in like the 90s, I think. I don't even know, but he's won here. But his overall record, not great. I don't think the fit is very good at all. He makes too many big numbers, and especially on the par threes here, which can be tough. And so I just he's definitely on the avoid list. So we look down to, well, where do we match up with him? Well, Ian Poulter is actually the guy that comes up here, and they're both minus 110 in each way. Ian Poulter on absolute country fire recently. He has just like
why he moved up from 45 to 1 to 30 to 1 or 25 to 1 now.
Yeah. I'm not exactly a fan of him in the futures market this week, but he's just like Rory McIlroy. Both of them the same. Their last 5 events around the world, all top 5s. Not top 10s, top 5s around the world. So Poulter hasn't won just like Rory has, so I think that's why his stock maybe hasn't risen, completely. But total fire, playing well no matter what course he's at.
He's not a well-known name like Rory is.
He is not. That is very, very true. Poulter lived here for now well over a decade in this area. He's a Lake Nona resident, and
I know Lake Nona well.
Has always played well here. He's made 8 straight cuts in the last 8 times he's been here. On average, finishing around tied for 20th, and it's just a guy that I'm going to ride. I'm going to ride here. He's playing really well. He's got a good record here, and I'm not a big fan of on the Mickelson side. So that's one of those plus-minus type of things, always what you're looking for. Henrik Stenson, I mentioned, he's got matchups against Billy Horschel and Louis Oosthuizen. The unfortunate thing is there's both minus 125 in both of those. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm not going to bet both. I'm trying to figure out which one I dislike more, Horschel or Oosthuizen here. I mean, Oosthuizen's always that, he can be great or he can be really bad. Horschel's been pretty consistent of quality recently, so I'm probably going to choose Oosthuizen, although I'm not all that comfortable with it because I know he can put it together at any time.
Sure.
Tommy Fleetwood, we had mentioned before, has a matchup against Francesco Molinari, so that's another
perfect.
one. Yeah, perfect one there. He's also plus 100 on William Hill, so that's fantastic as well. Funny enough, I'm going to go against J.B. Holmes here. J.B. Holmes' record after a win, he's now won 5 times on tour. He's missed the cut 3 times, and he's finished about 40th in the other 2 times.
That's right. You don't have to love him. We just loved him for that day.
No, but I think it's important to know, to see how people play after a win. And he's matched up against Hatong Li, the very, very good up-and-coming Chinese player who's now cracked the top 30, I believe, in the world.
Oh, Hatong.
Hatong, yes. Hatong.
Bad pun.
Been on the European tour now for the last couple of years, and he's slowly started to transition over here. His game is going to translate pretty much everywhere. He's fantastic. I actually love that one at minus 110 for Hatong. And we have DeChambeau bets. DeChambeau over Jason Day, minus 105. And then we have another one here, just a couple others against Jason Day, because I'm really on the anti-Jason Day train.
I see that.
Especially if you can get something here. So Matsuyama plus 110. And considering Fowler minus 125, but I'm not sure what we'll do there. I don't like to bet, the higher minus money lines usually, but we'll see. So those are the ones I'm interested in, just playing off of who I like and who I don't like and seeing what the matchups are.
And that's the tournament matchup. Obviously, those matchups,
Yes.
round matchups are going to come as the tournament starts.
Correct.
So we'll be putting those up on Vegas Square's Twitter if Mr. Tony Johnson sees anything he likes.
Yes, I will get on that. Especially with some first round ones.
I teased that last week and we lied. Sorry.
Yeah, we did lie, but I know people like the 1 round matchups too because obviously you get that instant gratification.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is kind of fun. So no, I admit the fun part is really there. I'm just not. I'm so much better in the overall
last
matchups.
week we did have that CT pan, and as Token so eloquently put it, it did not pan out the way we expected it to. So.
It was well said. I take full responsibility for that not panning out at all because it was a beating. I think he was like 4 over in that round. So you just can't be taking guys.
And the guy
that,
he played was 3 over. That was the worst part too.
Who
did he play? He played. I think he played
Johnson Wagner.
Johnson Wagner. Yeah, so that's okay. You're going to have those days, like you said. Last week wasn't the strongest week, but we bounced back with the API, and hopefully, I like what you're talking about. Tail end DeChambeau with the passion that he has for this specific tournament. It's hard to really manufacture something like that for a lot of these guys, but when you have such a history like that, and like with Jason Day. Things in your life really matter when it comes to a sport like this. Unable to really take away the family aspect and set aside, because you don't have to play every game like you do in basketball, baseball, football.
Right.
You don't have to play and travel. You do what you want. You play the schedule you want to play. So you're right. Things like changing clubs, changing balls, having a kid, those things matter, and it's weird to think. So
couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
So all right, well that's the Arnold Palmer Invitational. After the Alex Noren disaster, I'm not even going to make picks. I don't want anybody to be confused and be like, I tailed that fucking host guy's pick. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Although Eric Compton started out 3 under. Or 2 under in the first round and completely shit the bed. Yeah. So it was a fun little hoorah for him, but it didn't work out in the end. So anyways, that's going to wrap it up for us. Thanks to Tony Johnson. Hopefully you tail his picks, make some money, or if you fade his picks, we hope you lose.
Well, me personally, I mean, for you out there,
well, I'll be tailing a little bit of Tony's picks as well here this week. So we personally hope you lose. But if we don't have a good week and you fade the picks, we hope you make some money if that's to be the case. Tail us or fade us, that is, the choice is yours. So let's thank the sponsors here real quick. We want to thank 12 Ounce Sports Radio, obviously, for airing us every Monday and Wednesday evenings. We'll be on a little bit more when football comes back on. But we want to thank Chai Poker and Eric on the web, and obviously we want to thank Vegas Puckline Apparel for all their continued support. And good luck again on your bets, and we will catch you on the next episode.